I'm going to get straight to the point. I've been shooting photography for about 9 years. Everything from wildlife and landscape to people and places, from paid to not paid, from digital to film. These are the 11 things I wish I knew the whole time. Photography lives at the intersection of art, science, and physical circumstance. And the coolest thing about photography is loving photography is actually loving the world. And what I mean by that is that you don't, as much as you love photography, you don't really shoot photos of other cameras. You shoot photos of skateboarders skating or dancers dancing. So the best thing you can actually focus on is going to be around the things that you love. That's one of the biggest battles you can have. If you love nature, book a backpacking trip. If you love people, go to that cool festival across the country. That's the biggest battle, and if you can win that, you're going to get a lot better photos. Let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, I was in these sand dunes in Colorado. Absolutely beautiful. I hiked up them. I even snowboarded down the dunes, but I made one big mistake, and that is I never took my camera out of my bag. And the reason is that there's these really fast winds, and it was kicking sand up, and sand is one of the worst materials that you can ever put your camera around, especially when it's blowing in the wind. It's hard enough of a surface that it can scratch the glass on your lens, the back screen, anything like that. It can mess up the lenses, it can get in the gears. It can irreparably destroy your gear, for a lack of better words. But I regret that, and lucky enough, I was in a place, the exact same place just a few weeks ago, and it was the exact same circumstance. Sand was kicking everywhere, but I was just smart about it. I took my camera out, I kept it inside my jacket, and every moment I had, I was popping photos and I was getting it back in. And the truth is, it wasn't that bad. I was actually able to clean the gear in about 5 minutes, and there was no irreparable damage. And the truth of it is that you will be in circumstances that are less than ideal. It will be raining, it will be pouring, there will be heavy wind, it could be crowded, it could be a lot of things. And the truth is, if you're bringing your camera, you should shoot the photos because, yes, camera gear is fragile, but it's also a tool to capture these moments, and the camera can be replaced, the moments cannot. So I would recommend getting an insurance plan, but don't forget that these things are tools and they're here to take photos. So take the photo. Look, I am really guilty of this one, and it is that not every photo has to be better than your last. And this is a bad one because it can put you in a creative box. And look, it's a good piece of advice. The only person you have to be better than is who you were yesterday. And, as a general trend, you would hope that for any photographer, most of your work from 2023 is better than most of your work from 2022. But not every photo is going to be better than your last, and I think it can really limit what you're willing to edit and put out there, and the fact that, yes, some photos are going to expand your best photo and what that even means. You're going to be like, I've never taken a photo better than this. But you're going to also take a lot of photos that don't quite cross that threshold, and it doesn't mean that they're bad photos. If there's something that you find intriguing about them, you should still edit them. You should put them out there. If there's good texture, there's good quality, facial expression, storytelling, it warrants existing, and it shouldn't die on a hard drive somewhere. So if you have a good photo, edit it, get it out to the world. This one took me way too long to realize, and that is that every photographer on the high end is planning and scouting their locations. And what I mean by that is I used to think that every photo was just like a coincidental masterpiece, and that does happen. It really does happen, but it's not most photos. Most high-end photographers are stacking the odds in their favor. Things like they know when the waterfalls are going to be at the highest flowing point, and they know when the flowers are going to be blossoming, and they know when that cool festival is so that they can get all the awesome street photography. They are making sure to travel to these places during these circumstances so that all the elements line up for these incredible photos. And on top of that, when it's not that season, there's a good chance that they're going to these places to scout them beforehand so that they're familiar with all the elements, like where this rock is and where, this tree is and all that stuff, so that everything is in their head and they don't actually have to figure it out while there's that 30 seconds of perfect lighting happening. These people are stacking the odds in their favor, and they're scouting these places. I get most of my best photos actually on my second trip to a place. So I will say, if you want to really elevate your photography, start to plan. High-end photography is actually high-end planning, and if you can, try and go there and try and get familiar with the location before you go there to take photos. It really does help. This is a huge one, not just for photography, but also life in general. But look, I don't care how many followers you have, what clients you have, what photography awards you have won. If you want to continuously grow as a photographer, you have to make learning a constant state. You should be talking to other photographers, learning how they do things like, oh, they use this HSL slider trick. Or you should be watching YouTube videos to find out this way to denoise your photos better than you've ever known how to do it before. If you want to get better at photography, you should constantly be looking for ways to improve it because the industry is ever changing. There's new gear, there's new software, there's new techniques. And it will only aid you because the truth about photography is you've never truly made it. You are really just in a battle with yourself. And if you can get better than yourself, this is one of the best ways to do it, is just to keep learning. And the last point leads directly into this point, which is you should really make a conscious effort to look at photos from incredible photographers. And one of the first places you might think of is social media, Instagram, stuff like that. And they are good, but I do warn you, those are specifically designed to make you fall into rabbit holes. Like one moment you're looking at incredible photos and the next you're watching dog videos and it's been 35 minutes. If you can, I would try and get some photo books. There's a lot of them secondhand. I would say a majority of my books are secondhand. And the third thing I do is if there's a photographer I really like, I'll actually go to their profile, I'll go to their website and I bookmark it. I have a whole list of bookmarks of all these incredible photographers I like. And I really like that because on their website, they get to control how their work is. Whereas like on Instagram or Facebook, there's a ton of compression or there's like the 4:5 force ratio. The point is, no matter where you look at it, you should go be inspired by as many good photographers as you can. And the reason is if you want to think about it like this, you should think about yourself like an AI model that you're trying to train. And I mean that in the fact that when you look at these photos, you should really think how they're making the sauce. And I say that because you might take elements of all these different photographers and put them into your own. So there might be like a foreground trick that you really like that this one photographer uses and a flash trick that another photographer uses. And you might be in the perfect circumstance to take both of those elements and make actually unique new art. And that's why you should constantly be looking at artists' work. This point is directly correlated with really famous photo spots. This might be like Delicate Arch, Yosemite Valley, Eiffel Tower, anything kind of like that, where it's a situation where there are hundreds of thousands of people who have taken photos of these places. And depending on the circumstance, like Delicate Arch, most of these photos might be taken like 100 feet from each other. And these are the kind of photos that I'd always really get in my head about. I'd be like, everyone's taking this photo. It's super lame. It's nothing new. And that is true. But I would really urge you to still take that photo and do your best to make it your own. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And the number one reason is that that photo is taken by you. So it is your unique perspective and it is your unique story. And that is worth something. And I might, warn you against putting that photo at the top of your portfolio because it's not really that cutting edge, if you want to put it that way. But it's still your photo and you should take it. And our stories and our photos is what is going to separate us from AI. And you should really just take the photo. You won't regret it. That's all I gotta say. Look, photography is the culmination of so many skills, it's not even funny. For one, you gotta be a photographer. For two, you gotta be good at website design. 3, marketing doesn't hurt. 4, gotta be an accountant because money helps pay the bills. 5, marketing to get your photos in front of people, whether it's your photo services, your prints, whatever it is. Social media presence, that's important. There's a lot of things that add up to being a successful photographer, but being bad at those things doesn't necessarily detract from your skill as an artist. Just because you're not going viral on Instagram doesn't mean you're terrible at photography. Don't beat yourself up just because your print sales aren't through the roof. These are completely different skills, and yes, you should work to improve across the board, but you're not a bad artist because you're bad at business. That's all I gotta say. Okay, so what I mean by this one, by ratio, is how many photos you take versus how many photos end up in your portfolio and are actually good. I'll be honest with you, I have a terrible ratio. Off the top of my head, if I were just ballpark it, I would say I take 1,000 photos for every like one half decent photo I have. And generally as a photographer, as you progress, that will get better. The amount of photos you need to take to have a good one will go down, but it's never going to be perfect. And so you shouldn't be afraid to take photos that aren't great. If you're out and about shooting photos and something interests you, like there's a tree with some incredible texture, shoot a photo. If the light in this alley is really cool, shoot a photo. Because photography is really unique in the fact that it's kind of a dialogue between you and the present and the person who gets to pull it up on the computer later. And let them make that decision. You're really not going to kick yourself if you have extra photos sitting on a hard drive somewhere. And you know what? At the end of the day, you can also delete them. But just shoot photos and don't be scared to take bad photos is really the big takeaway from this one. Look, this one's really simple. All it is every once in a while you should make a point to go through your older photos, whether they're 6 months, a year, 5 years old, it doesn't really matter. What I will promise you is there's a good chance that you're going to find a photo that resonates with you now that just didn't in the past. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. You could have grown as a photographer and you could recognize elements that you accidentally stumbled upon at the time. Or it could be that you have new editing skills that you just didn't at the time, and now you know you can crop it and make a slight color adjustment and the photo looks incredible. Just go through your old photos. The chances that you get to add good photos to your portfolio because you did so without actually having to go on another trip, it's really high, it's really likely, and you should do it. This one is very easily said, very hard to master, and that is the most important skill that a photographer can have is recognizing the best photo or good photos when they see them. And what I mean by this is you might be in a place with one thing of interest, and you may take photos of it from 9 different angles. And one of the hardest skills and one of the most important skills is, of the 50 photos you took, recognizing the best photo that you took. Because, you know, the best photo you have might actually be sitting on your hard drive. And I've done it. I've gone back to old stuff and said, oh my God, that's the photo I chose. And look, it's the culmination of studying photography, getting better at photography. That's how you really improve at this one. But it's just the most important skill that you can grow as a photographer, is to recognize good photography when you see it and being your best advocate and choosing your best photo from the photos you took. At the end of the day, photography is a journey, and I mean that in the fact that you just have to do it to get better, and it's going to take time. But I do hope that these tips and this advice can help you along that journey and you can become a better artist. And I hope you fall in love with photography, and I hope you really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things, is that it's one of those skills where anyone can pick it up, anyone can shoot photos, but it takes a lifetime to master. And I hope you see it through. I'm trying to. But if you watch this far, I really appreciate it. I got my own website if you want to check out my photography. If you have a tip that you wish you knew the whole time you've been shooting photos, leave it in the comments below. If you're feeling like you like my content, maybe hit subscribe. Check out my other stuff. I really appreciate you. Have a good one. Cheers.